cop thrillers with women at the helm of affairs, and Nasir Shah reciting Urdu poetry over the course of a film. Sounds really good on paper, right? But do these, and a lot more, live up to the hype? Stick around and find out on this week's episode of The Screen Verdict, the show where we watch Cellulite's finest and most questionable so that you don't have to. I'm Varun Kaushik, your resident cinephile with way too much time on his hands, bringing you yet another 4 titles and one big question. Should you stream it or skip it? Let's dive right in. In our first review, Prime Video's Daldal, there's a reason why the film is called that. A quagmire, that is. Because like one, it pulls you in slowly and then refuses to let go. Set around a serial killer whose identity is revealed on way too early, to a point wherein I don't even think we can call it a whodunit. It's more like a she-done-it, because we know who did it. Daldal, you see, isn't interested in who did it, but why, and what trauma does when it's left to ferment. Bhumi Pednekar plays ACP Rita Ferrero, an undercover cop on the cusp of becoming the youngest DCP. And she's introduced in a scene that's eerie, abrasive, and quietly unsettling. So for all you thriller aficionados, it has all the fixins of the genre. What distinguishes Daldal from the crowded OTT crime shelf is temperament. I mean, at this point, the shelf is so crowded that I think Amazon Prime and Netflix together own more cop costumes than police academies across the nation. Rita isn't heroic in the conventional sense. She's brittle, emotionally distanced, and shaped by a toxic childhood we see glimpses of in the flashes. Women here, women cops specifically, aren't written as symbols, they're written as people, which is refreshing given that Bollywood's woman-centric films often paint an archetype of a woman that's too perfect. You know the kind of woman, right? The kind of woman who knows just the kind of jabs to make, just the right heels to strut in, and just the right power moves to make. Now, you may think that this content is for feminist cause, but such content really isn't, because what happens is instead of women breaking the mold, we're creating another unrealistic expectation for them. So with Bhumi at the helm of affairs, this movie shows a woman cop who's vulnerable, who comes with her own baggage, which is a refreshing take. Watch how hierarchy and affection here collide in something as small as an ASI switching from tum to up. The series builds on its darkness subtly. Timelines crisscross, motivations blur, and moral clarity remains slippery. Samara Tijori delivers a multi-shaded performance, while Geeta Agarwal's restraint often speaks louder than dialogue. Paresh Rawal's son, Aditya Rawal, adds moral complexity without pleading for sympathy. Now, this has been a good review so far, but not everything lands in this series. The final episode feels rushed and oddly distrustful of the audience's intelligence. However, the journey is nonetheless absorbing. Shot with precision, aided by radio voices that lend surreal edge, Daldal leaves you unsettled even in closure. A solid safe 3.5 stars. If gloom doesn't scare you off, this one's worth sinking into. Moving on to our second title, Mardaani 3, where Rani Mukherjee returns as Shivani Shivaji Roy, the upright, unyielding and still very much unofficially Lady Singham officer. Marking her third outing as a super cop, Mardaani 3 arrives with the confidence of an established franchise, but also the fatigue of one that's unsure of why it exists beyond legacy maintenance. I mean, if anything, let this be a PSA to Bollywood. Not everything needs a sequel, not everything needs a remake. Back to the review. The film centers on trafficking linked to cervical cancer vaccine development, with Shivani leading the charge against a criminal network that preys on young girls. At 130 minutes, the storytelling is brisk and the actions neatly choreographed, but that just might be its hamasha. The plot is overly tidy, conveniently unfolding without much resistance. Evidence falls into place way too easy here, and the script makes baffling allowances. One that particularly baffled me was when Shivani let a key antagonist walk free, simply because the plot needs her later. The film wants to critique a system that protects the powerful, but only truly wakes up to that after rescuing an ambassador's daughter, belatedly remembering that other missing children matter too. What keeps the film afloat are the performances. Mukherjee's de-glam, no-nonsense presence anchors the narrative, while Mallika Prasad surprises as the antagonist. And the background score too does its job. Without shouting, that is. Still, the mandatory sermon at the end, which is a common feature in Bollywood films these days, feels weary, as it often does. And the restraint shown in writing supporting characters limits emotional impact. Mardaani 3 is competent, polished and unchallenging, but its sluggish story undermines its brisk telling. Despite committed performances, Mardaani 3 settles for a 2.5 stars. Slickly made, but let down by a simplistic, convenience-driven story. Our third review today is The Big Fake. Now, if style could replace substance, The Big Fake would be a masterpiece and my life would be a lot easier. But trust me, it isn't. Set in 1970s Rome during the years of Lead, the film follows Tony, an aspiring painter whose real talent lies in forging art, identities, and eventually his own moral compass. The backdrop is rich. Political unrest, crime syndicates, disco lights, and betrayal. What I call a Saturday. Visually though, the film looks slick and confident. But beneath the neon glow lies a script that rarely digs deep enough. Pietro Castellitto brings energy and arrogance to Tony, but the character just isn't written with the depth needed to sustain such a descent. Giulia Michelini, I know I'm butchering these names, but we're friends so it's okay, right? Begins strong as Donata, a glamorous art dealer, only to fade into functionality. There's a romance, but it never convinces, so when it collapses, it barely bruises. The film juggles crime thriller, political drama, character study, but never quite commits to any. It's having a full-blown identity crisis. Also what I like to call a Saturday. Major plot points are rushed past, but inconsequential scenes linger. The political backdrop hangs around like decor, more than tension. Despite competent performances and an evocative setting, The Big Fake ends up doing exactly what its title suggests. Faking brilliance, that is. Stream for the Italy vibes, but don't expect emotional resonance to follow. Style heavy and substance light, The Big Fake gets 2 stars. Just like my dating profile, it's visually impressive, but emotionally hollow. And finally, our fourth review, Gustaakh Ishq. Now, if you want to watch the film equivalent of that one theatre boy we all know, who makes the unread Faiz Ahmed Faiz book he owns his entire personality, then this film is right up your alley. It's a case study in what happens when a film has too much Urdu poetry and nowhere to put it. Gustaakh Ishq surprisingly achieves the rare feat of making Urdu, which is silky, gentle and musical, feel exhausting and overbearing. Now, it's supposedly set in 1998, though the set design and the color grading never really let that on. I mean, if you're going to be judging by signage and by the color grading, which is very milky and very coffee-like almost, the film reads more pre-independence. It's pretty, but it has no substance though. The film is drenched in dialogue, narration, and aesthetic. And indulgence. Vijay Verma plays Nawabuddin Saifuddin Rahman Rizvi, a principal publisher who inherits a dying press and unwielding morals from his father. And he never lets you forget it. Which was perhaps my biggest issue, my biggest grapple with the film, is that it has to talk about everything. It has to say everything. So much so that I think the most accidentally era accurate thing it does is the fact that the makers probably believed that it was to be telecast on radio, because everything is said in dialogues, there's no nuance left, and for a film that centers itself around Urdu poetry, that is just disingenuous. Whatever's not said between actors follows you, with Vijay Verma's narration, which is overbearing throughout. So the film really is heavy-handed, it's heavily dialogued. A search for an elusive writer named Aziz leads Rizvi to Malerkotla, where Nasir Shah plays the aging poet, with warmth and authority and grace, almost like that one rose you press between books. It's old, there's a certain beauty of surrender to it, but it's still domineering. For her part, Fatima Sana Sheikh's Mannat communicates more with her eyes than the film allows anyone else to do. She exudes brilliance as an actor and is a breath of fresh air in this heavily dialogued movie. The performances here, needless to say, are worth watching, whether it's Shah who's commanding, Sheikh who's quietly luminous, or Verma who grounds the implausibility of the film with sincerity, like Petrichor after False Rain. But the film, as I said, insists on telling you everything, feelings, meanings, histories, until visual storytelling becomes decorative afterthought. Produced and costume designed by Manish Malhotra, the film feels like an anecdote that's narrated over a Pinterest board. Aesthetics here trump accuracy. Now, if overbearing is your deal breaker, like clearly it is mine, this film will test your patience. But if you're able to wade through those waters, it becomes camp in the best way possible. There's a lot of poetry, there's a lot of beauty here, and if implausibility isn't something that turns you away, this might be a good watch for you. It's an elongated elegy, which is better suited for the theatre stage than the screen, but still deserves 2.5 stars, mostly for Nasir Shah. So there you have it, 4 titles, 4 moods, and varying degrees of conviction. From crime that crawls under your skin to cop dramas that play it safe, to films that mistake poetry and gloss for depth. For the full detailed reviews of Daldal, Mardaani 3, The Big Fake and Gustaakh Ishq, head to the movie review section of the Tribune India website, where verdicts continue without the voiceover. Unlike Gustaakh, that is, which is heavy on the voiceover. Can you tell that I'm miffed by it? Anyways, see you next week. Until then, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, binge responsibly.